How's it going? And welcome to my guide on Chapter 3 of Tomb of Annihilation, a 5th edition module. Chapter 3 goes over the city of Omu, the Forbidden City, the Deadly City, the Lost City. Before I get into any of the fine details on this dangerous city, I must warn you that there will be spoilers, so no players allowed. DMs. Come on in and let's get to it. Alright, so, Omu, your players finally found the lost city of Omu, the place that they've been searching for that houses the Soulmonger. However, the Soulmonger is not located directly outside in the middle of the open of the city. No, that'd be far too easy. The Soulmonger resides in the Tomb of the Nine Gods. Who are these nine gods? Why is there a tomb of them? Why is Omu lost? All of this is answered if you crack open the book. But let's go ahead and read some of it off. All right. So the lowdown, real quick, is that the city, which was the strongest of all the cities in all of Chult, sadly fell from grace as they were doing despicable things, and the god Ubtao turned its back on the people. The people needed to draw power, and in that vacuum, nine minor deities formed. These nine deities all required their worshippers to do various things, like erect shrines dedicated to each of them, which are all dedicated around the city. Sararak eventually saw this city and realized that he could easily take these people over, as the nine gods were just minor and weak. And this is where he got his labor force to erect a deadly tomb, the Tomb of the Nine Gods. What did he do with that tomb? He immediately filled it up with the nine gods that he slew personally. Flash forward several hundred years, and lo and behold, the city has found new residents. In its wake, we have Yuan-Ti, we have Grung, we have Batiri, we have Veggie Pygmies. And those are just the mainstays there. There's also some fun little additions, newcomers such as kobolds, red wizards, and a bevy of tabaxi hunters. So, armed with this information, it is best to present this city as a dead city, which is not as dead as it appears at first glance. When your players arrive, they're going to find that they're in a race of time, as they need to find puzzle cubes in order to make their way into the Tomb of the Nine Gods. These puzzle cubes are each dedicated to one of the gods, and each cube is found at one of these shrines, 9 in total. Why are they in a race of time? Well, the red wizards of Thay have arrived, and they are looking for these puzzle cubes as well. And if they dawdle long enough, the Yuan-Ti that inhabit the city are going to catch on to this and to try and nab the cubes as well, to lure these adventurers into their lair. So as the DM, you're going to have to present this chapter as a fun exploration, lots of roleplay elements, lots of exploration elements, lots of puzzle elements, and theoretically lots of combat elements. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the locations of Omu. Just a quick note, your players realistically only have three ways in which they can enter the city. The first is by walking, in which case they will have to go to a grand staircase located to the southwest. The second would be going down the river to the northeast. However, going down the river and going down the waterfall could be a little bit dangerous. And last would be either scaling the cliffside or flying down. However, that last one is also equally dangerous, as ringed around the city, every 100 feet or so, are goblins perched up on the cliffs who are ready to fly out and kill anybody that's flying around or scaling the cliffside. So, location one, the city entrance. This is a great little exposition dump, as your players will find a ruinous guardhouse, but inside is located a bunch of graffiti, which will blurt out several names and several hints of what's to come. Fear the Fangs of Raz Nisi. Eric, I've gone in search of the Nine Shrines. All of these can hopefully tip off your players to the fact that they need to be looking for these shrines, that they need to be looking for these cubes, that they need to be scared of the Yuan-Ti. Also, a fun little note, all hail the King of Feathers. The King of Feathers, you'll come to find, is a magical T-Rex that can teleport. Very terrifying. Area 2, the walled compound, was recently attacked. The Red Wizards of Thay, that have just arrived in the city not too long ago, set up camp here. The Yuan-Ti did not take kindly to these trespassers and thus annihilated them. A few survived. A few of the Red Wizards made their way into the city. However, there is a single survivor left at the site. His name is Orvex. Orvex can potentially be an incredibly valuable source as he can tell the players about the Red Wizards. He can speak Grung. He can read Old Omuin. He can tell the players about the gods, and the exposition dump is incredibly useful. However, something to note is that when the players find him, he's incredibly weakened. He only starts off with 3 HP and is already at 3 levels of exhaustion. That is not good. However, if your players are willing to help him up, bandage his wounds, and potentially, take some time and rest, he will be nice and spry. He has the stat block of a spy, which is not bad at all. He can hold his own. However, typically at this higher level of play, he will not be doing anywhere close to the amount of what the players can do. As you can see here, areas 3 and 4 don't have any little text block here, as all these shrines have been given not only their own little mini map, but also an incredible amount of detail in their own. So let's go ahead and dive right into Kabuzan's Shrine. Kabuzan's Shrine, as you can see here in the top left, it's a each of these mini maps is a cute little map that doesn't show any of the surrounding area. So if you're ever going to have any type of encounter that incorporates that, you are going to have to create a map of your own. But these, more often than not, work plenty well. So, Kabuzan. Who is Kabuzan? Kabuzan is depicted as a frog hemoth. This will be important to know because if your players attempt to make their way into Kabuzan's shrine, a frog hemoth will spring out of the pool here and attack. And frog hemoths can be a little bit scary. So your players have two options to get into the shrine. They can see that it is locked. They can attempt to open this door through magic, thieves' tools, or they can attempt to retrieve a key which is located in that statue that is in the center of the pond. However, as one could expect, if you are to try and walk over there, that's when the frog heme is going to strike out. But that is not the biggest issue with this shrine. This shrine is a trap, and it is a deadly one. When your players walk into the shrine, they're going to see a bunch of wooden planks that are jutting out of the side, requiring an acrobatics roll to jump to the next one. One thing they'll note is, one, if you fall, you're probably going to fall on a bunch of spikes, which is not fun. But two, and more importantly, as you jump from plank to plank, every plank behind you disappears. This plays into Kabuzan's mentality that you should never look behind you. You should always be pressing forward. The beams, the wooden planks, do not reset until all of the wooden planks are reset. Your players are not privy to that information, though. So, one of two ways they'll be able to find this out is if one person was to go around the entirety of it, or if two people were to go from either side and make their way to the front. Once your players have successfully navigated all of the planks and gotten to the other side where the puzzle cube rests, they are going to have an Indiana Jones moment as they need to counterweigh the cube that they're about to take. If they do not, a dangerous trap is sprung as the doors are closed and a poison springs out. This poison is pretty deadly, as at the start of every single turn for 1 minute, they must make a Constitution saving throw or take 3d6 damage. This damage can be damning, and if you are not running a high lethality campaign, you would probably do well to tone down the damage of this encounter. But if you're running a hardcore encounter, then by all means punish them for not pulling off the slick Indiana Jones move of placing a counterweight. Shagambi Shrine. Shagambi is depicted as a Kamadan, one of the jaguars with snakes coming out of its necks. That is a little bit strong. It's got a cool little breath attack. Shagambi's shrine is essentially a fight, but the thing that makes this fight unique is that your players cannot be tricksy. Your players cannot attempt to kite things away. Your players cannot attempt to run away from this fight. They cannot pull some nonsensical tricks. Shagambi Shrine is unique as soon as they walk in, they can clearly see where the puzzle cube is. It's located right there in the center, but you cannot access it yet. So the puzzle cube's out in the open, but they just can't access it. So how do they access it? Well, they'll see that surrounding the puzzle cube here are four statues depicting gladiators, noting that it appears that they should be holding spears in their hands but don't have any. If they are to go down to the gladiator pit below, clay gladiators will spawn in and fight the party. The interesting thing about these clay gladiators is that if they are destroyed while fighting inside of the arena, their spears will drop and their bodies will disappear. However, if the players try to do anything tricksy, they either try to run away or they try and teleport the creatures or they do something dishonorable, the spear will teleport with them. They need these spears in order to unlock the puzzle cube. So, it really just comes down to they have to fight a air quo fair fight in the arena. That being said, there are several ways they can get around that. The gladiator pit is below, and above there's actually a cage that lets the players see into. So if you got a group with some melee capable people, they could be below, fighting face to face the gladiators, while the people up top could be shooting down. However, your players deal with the gladiators, as long as the gladiators are destroyed in the arena, their spears clatter to the ground and they do not respawn. This is a semi deadly encounter, even at the higher levels, as the stat line of a gladiator is not something to play around with. They get 3 attacks, they can shield bash, they're doing twice as much damage as players can. It's kind of terrifying, really. But with some good tactics and sound mind, they are able to destroy the gladiators, pick up the spears, put it in the statue's hands, and lo and behold, they have earned themselves Shagambi's puzzle cube. The Great Rift. So you'll see that Omu has had better days, and sadly now has a huge river of lava flowing at the bottom of it. The veggie pygmies of this place herald this great rift and use it for ritualistic sacrifice. The first time your players arrive to the Great Rift, they will find a veggie pygmy tribe about to sacrifice a grung to the lava itself. This grung is not just any grung, however. He is the beloved 180th son of Chief Yorb, the king of the grung in this city. If your players are feeling generous, they might end up saving this grung, defeating the veggie pygmies, and having a cute little grung companion on their side. Area 6, Moa's Shrine. Moa's Shrine is extremely unique in that it is very hard to access natively. All the other ones are connected to the city itself, but as you can see here, it is sadly been locked away from the land. So the first puzzle in Moa's Shrine is getting to it in the first place. It is 60 feet away from the separating landmass, so your players are going to have to try and get creative here, whether they're going to throw a grappling hook over, maybe they got some fly spells in their pocket, maybe they do something dumb like trying to throw their companions. Ugh, poor Billy. So when your players eventually actually arrive at Moa's Shrine, they're going to find that the trees outside of Moa's Shrine actually have several Jakuli, Jakuli being the spring-like snakes. These things are going to spring down and attack the party. However, probably at this level, the Jakuli aren't going to be that much of an issue. So the real fun begins once they arrive in Moa's Shrine itself. You can see here that there are several traps, but what's unique is the traps are actually not for when the players enter, it's for when they try to leave. There's pit traps, and at the bottom of these pit traps is green slime. So when they enter the main room, they'll see the puzzle cube sitting right there, but they'll also see a bunch of statues armed with bows and arrows. This puzzle cube, however, is a trap in and of itself, as it is just an illusion. When they try to take this thing from the shrine, it'll simply disappear in their hands. If your players attempt to take this cube, all of the statues are going to begin animating and firing. So, once your players have sussed out that this puzzle cube is a fake, how do they get to the real ones? Well, as your players walk through the hallway, they'll be able to actually see that there's two adjacent rooms, but there is no door. So this will probably prompt your players into searching for doors in order to get into these rooms. The puzzle cube in Area D is fake, and if picked up, prompts all of the traps as well as disappearing if they attempt to take it out. However, the puzzle cube in Area E is the real one. And once they take it out, no harm done. They just have the puzzle cube. Area 7, the Fallen Tree. As you can tell, there's a decent amount of water running through the city, and it actually runs relatively quick. One thing that helps out in crossing it is a large tree here. One thing to note about the water is that if your players fall in, they will be moved 50 feet around. There's only 200 feet before the river falls into the lava, so your players are going to have to make an athletics check to reach a bank. And if they don't, they're going to die. The other very scary thing to note about this fallen tree is on the opposite side of it is a assassin, Bag of Nails, a Tabaxi hunter, who essentially has come here to get a warrior's death. He is going to ambush anybody that crosses this river, and it is incredibly deadly. Bag of Nails has the stat block of an assassin, and that is terrifying. As your players are walking Congo line down this fallen tree, he's going to shoot someone on this tree, and the assassin stat block means that he is going to have advantage on the attack, he is going to get sneak attack, and if he's going to get a critical hit on the first round. That is terrifying. That can easily one-shot most players. So, if your players are strong enough and they push forward and beat up on Bag of Nails, Bag of Nails will feign surrender, and he will take them back to his abode, where he will tell them why he's there, about the city, about the navel of the moon, one of the fabled treasures of Omu. However, he is totally doing this with malign intent, as he is feeding the party midnight tears. Midnight tears are a deadly poison, as the night that you consumed this poison, you're going to have to make a con save, and you take 9d6 poison damage. That is pretty gnarly. So when all said and done, Bag of Nails is not a nice person. He is out to kill the party. If your players are smart enough to catch on to this, then hopefully they will spare themselves some heartache and misery. Unkh's Shrine. Unkh's Shrine is unique as soon as your players walk in the compound, they'll see a ruined workshop where there is hundreds of keys littering the walls. This isn't going to mean anything to most people, as hundreds of keys, what are you going to do with it? But they will understand in a moment, as when they walk in to the Chamber of Contemplation. There's a tiny combat here with three ghasts that have been waiting for someone to ambush in the shrine. But once they're done with that, they'll take a look around and discover what this puzzle is all about. Once again, the puzzle cube is out in the open, but it is locked. There is a keyhole, and what makes this terrifying is the fact that inside of this room are 6 keys. Of these 6 keys, none of them work. But the real trick is to overlap all of the keys, and when you do, you'll see that the keys form a certain pattern. And after a bit of time searching in the workshop outside, they'll be able to find a single key that matches up the ridges of all the other ones. But there is a deadly price to pay if your players try and attempt to pick this lock or they put in the wrong key. The statue in the center of the room is going to emit a bright light. Each creature in the shrine is going to be in for the save of their lives, as failure means that they take 6d10 radiant damage. This is not one of those traps where you can keep on inserting a different key and hoping something happens. So hopefully your players eventually wise up and line all the keys together. There is no mechanic on intelligence checks or perception checks or anything of that nature. But if you have a group that is not privy to puzzles, I'd recommend making something along those lines or having an NPC that's with them. Maybe point out, maybe it has something to do with the key, multiple keys, etc., etc. Area 9, the Adventurers Camp. A while ago, approximately 6 months ago, the company of the Yellow Banner stomped their way into Omu and set up camp here. The company of the Yellow Banner was actually successful in getting the 9 cubes and making their way into the Tomb of the 9 Gods. However, as the campaign is still going, they obviously failed, and their bodies will be found at a later time. This, once again, is a pretty good laid out exposition, as if they search the camp, they'll be able to find a letter, and this letter will actually direct them to the Tomb of the 9 Gods, which is located by an obelisk to the north of the city. Also, something important to note, it actually states that if the players are to stick around the adventurers camp for too long, a group of red wizards is going to make their way to them. How these red wizards interact with your party will be entirely dependent on your previous actions, if you have Orvex with you, or if your players just love a good brawl. If you're one of those DMs that is DMing a group that loves roleplay, then I would strongly recommend having a good old encounter of the Red Wizards, talking to the party, back talk of what are you doing here? Who are you? Are you going to serve us? Are we going to work together? As the Red Wizards can be great antagonists here if played out correctly. They can be in opposition of the party directly, or they can be working side by side as they go ahead and collect the puzzle cubes together and potentially even join together and make their way into the Tomb of the 9 Gods side by side. Ijin Shrine. Ijin is symbolized as an almirage, a unicorn bunny, and his shrine reflects its erraticness. Ijin's teaching is to do the unpredictable, which is reflected in the shrine as you are supposed to always go left and right. You're never supposed to basically keep on going in the same direction. What's also fun to note is Ijin Shrine also has its own mini map. Your players will be looking at this puzzle floor and see all these animals and will totally be wondering how to get over this. Well, what's fun about this trap is it's kind of unique how your players actually activate the trap. This is something that you are going to have to keep track of, as the trap activates if any character steps on the same animal twice. So if you are to actually take a look, you can sort of path it out. There are multiple ways your players could end up going about this. What's also fun to note is if you are to step on one of the Almirage tiles here, that player will actually get 2d10 temp HP. I mean, that's free HP. This trap can be circumvented by spider climb and other various means to not walk along the floor. So a pretty unique little map puzzle where your players simply just don't have to step on the same thing twice unless they get poisoned darted. And that is met by a cute little labyrinth. This labyrinth isn't going to have them guessing forever. It's relatively small. But the thing about it is if your players are to basically pursue dead ends, they will start activating traps that are laid throughout this dungeon. The traps aren't all that deadly. They only do a d8 of damage at most, nothing major. So it's not going to take too long for your players to eventually reach the puzzle cube. Once they reach the puzzle cube, it is just sitting on top of a dais, and your players can easily access it and just simply walk out.